So welcome to the session. It's Harmonizing Nature's Symphony, Biodiversity Loss, Climate Change and the Path to Rewilding. Today we are going to embark on an extraordinary journey, delving into the intricate tapestry of life on Earth. And in the next hour we'll explore the intricate balance between biodiversity and climate change, unveiling the intricate dance of ecosystems. We will reveal the loss of a single species and how it sends ripples across entire ecosystems, echoing a profound call for conservation. Well, of course, I'm Irfan Firozi, a naturalist, a passionate naturalist dedicated to safeguarding our planet's treasures. But let's move on beyond words. Let me introduce myself.
In all of this incredible work, where life pulses through every corner, I stand as a guardian of nature, an explorer of its mysteries. My name is Irfan Firozi. And my journey as a naturalist has been an odyssey of wonder spanning over 9 years. My passion evolved into a devotion that led me to immerse myself in the beauty and complexity of biodiversity. Through diligent research and unquenchable curiosity, I delved into the intricate threads that connect species and ecosystems. My dedication materialized in scientific papers and a book titled The Year Earth Changed, which blends my TEDx speech with a call for conservation. My collection holds over 300 specimens, each a time capsule of life's diversity. They remind me of the past and future, urging me to protect the delicate balance of our planet. I've extended my voice to the digital realm, producing documentaries and hosting the Nature Talks podcast. In this space, I educate, share wonders, and inspire action. And since I was born, I've clearly witnessed the reduction of many species. Every time I visit an environment, I said to myself, will I see these creatures again? Through my adventures, I've come to a clear understanding or witness that from the tiniest plankton to the apex predators prowling the savanna, each species plays a role in the intricate web of life. This web is like a spider's silk. It is very delicate, and if you pluck one strand, the entire structure trembles. Biodiversity loss has led to growing silence, as species after species fall silent like neglected instruments. These melodies are fading, leaving behind an eerie quietude in their wake. But I've also witnessed the recovery of the natural world. As we journey through history, we encounter the footprints of remarkable individuals who recognize the profound importance of biodiversity. Charles Darwin's voyage on the HMS Beagle led to groundbreaking insights into evolution and the interdependence of species. Rachel Carson's theory of coal through Silent Spring warned us of the dangers of indiscriminate chemical use, igniting the modern environmental movement. There is actually a better future. Our instruments may be different. Some play the notes of advocacy, others the chords of policy making, and still others the rhythms of grassroots action. But when we combine these individual efforts, when we listen to one another's melodies, and when we harmonize our intentions, we create something truly remarkable. A world where every voice is heard and valued. In the end, the story of Earth's biodiversity is not just about the past. It's an ongoing narrative, a call to action, and a promise to the future. jungles, skyscrapers rise where forests once stood, and highways carved in landscapes rich with life. However, amidst the concrete and steel, pockets of green emerge, parks, botanical gardens, and wildlife reserves, a testament of humanity's yearning for a connection to the natural world. And as we sit as the audience of this cosmic performance, let us remember that we're not passive observers. We are indeed instrumentalists in the grand symphony, holding the power to adjust our actions and preserve the harmony of our planet.
So, long before human footprints adorned Earth's surface, life began in the oceans. A bold experiment shaping our world. And across ages, biodiversity painted its canvas with ingenious strokes. It's more than life's variety, of course. As we know, biodiversity itself is the variety of life on Earth. And it's the heartbeat of ecosystems. Picture a farmer's field, swaying crops, buzzing insects, pollinating the plants, and of course unseen earthworms enriching the soil, a symphony of life nurturing our sustenance. And in this intricate dance of life, biodiversity isn't just a spectacle, it's our lifeline. Each species, from the microscopic to the monumental, plays a role, a scientific saga of interconnectedness, vital for our survival. In the spirit of young curiosity, Charles Darwin's fascination with the natural world, from the early exploration and voracious reading, and his childhood spent immersed in fields and woodlands, mirrored my own museum-inspired experiences. As a child, feeling a deep desire to witness elusive creatures I could not see in my backyard. And museum visits were of course pivotal, revealing the impacts of climate change and biodiversity loss through the myriad of species they have had. And this motivated to act my personal journey, which of course began around 10 years ago, collecting diseased animal victims of natural or human causes to document their stories. And so far I've got over 300 specimens and I've presented it through many schools. Much like Darwin's extensive travels, my expeditions involved gathering animal and plants or fossil specimens, accompanied by meticulous forms and notes. And these collections, akin to Darwin's evidence trove, became the foundation of his groundbreaking theory, evolution by natural selection. And through shared tales of youthful exploration and scientific pursuits, the echoes of Darwin's legacy resonate, urging us to safeguard biodiversity and confront the challenges of a changing climate. But the story of biodiversity is beyond beauty. It's not just beauty. It's about one of interconnectedness. The extinction of a single species can set off, many groundbreaking diseases and dangers to our planet. And this chain reaction can disrupt ecosystems and jeopardize the delicate balance upon which all life depends on. So Charles Darwin used the concept of the tree of life in context of the theory of evolution to illustrate that all species on Earth are related and evolved from a common ancestor, Luca, which is the latest common ancestor. So the tips of the branches show the species that are still alive today, and he also shows that the ones that are now extinct. And Darwin himself explained through his notes that from the first growth of tree, many a limb and branch has decayed and dropped off, and these fallen branches of various sizes may represent those whole orders, families, and genera which have now no living representatives and which are now known to us only in fossil state. The lines on the tree of life shows evolutionary relationships between species. So in my 9 years journey of exploration and research, I've been immersed in the vibrant tapestry of life that surrounds us, uncovering its intricacies across diverse landscapes. I mean, picture this. A night in the deserts, armed with a torch amongst the rimmed shrubs, and with every flicker of light, a hidden world emerges. From the graceful Arabian fox to the majestic gazelle to the bustling life under logs and rocks, teeming with countless beetles and the elusive utopian hedgehogs. Of course, I'm talking about the UAE itself. But it was an expedition to the rainforest that truly unveiled the interconnectedness of life. As we trod upon the moist leaf litter, a symphony of serpents slither beneath, foretelling the richness of what awaited. And as night enveloped, a simple mercury lamp unveiled a whole mesmerizing spectacle, from mosquitoes at first to that performed their nocturnal tiets, that paved the way for a gather of ensemble, from stick bugs to let's say moths and masquerading as wasps, spiders weaving their silken tails, and beetles that transformed from sticks to aerial acrobats. Well, of course, Charles Darwin as well visited a jungle like this outside of Rio de Janeiro. He gathered 68 different species of rove beetles in a single day. And he was astounded by the diverse of these insects. I mean, not all of the beetles that Darwin collected, however, were willing to give up without a struggle. I mean, with ground beetles like the bombardier beetle, Darwin witnessed one such defense firsthand. Many of these insects produce an unpleasant compound to protect themselves. And as he mentioned in his journal, one day on tearing off some old bark, I saw 2 rare beetles and seized one in each hand. And I saw a third and a new kind, which I could not bear to lose. So that I popped the one which I held in my right hand into my mouth, and alas, it ejected some intensely acidic fluid, which burnt my tongue, and so that I was forced to spit the beetle out, which was lost, as was the third one. So shockingly, a creature so small had the power to create boiling chemicals that shoots out from its abdomen without hurting the beetles itself, and it can actually reach to maybe beyond the boiling points of water as well. So venturing into the desert at night reveals a hidden world bustling with life. I mean, though often unseen by the human eye, there is a whole array of creatures in the deserts. The Arabian gazelles, of course, momentarily stunned by flashlight, offer a rare chance for closer observation. Their gleaming eyes and delicate stature are captivating, but they swiftly vanish into the darkness. So this was one example. We were actually in a place called Qudra Lakes in the UAE, and we actually pointed a torch at a baby Arabian gazelle, and it was stunned there, and we got really close to it. Even as well an adult gazelle that I was actually going to be headbutt by. So we know that life is all around us. I mean, in my quest for elusive animal encounters, fate led me under the shelter of a revered garth tree. It was a very odd structure. Its branches, it was forming a captivating tunnel-like structure. And I was actually looking for a duck skull under the tree itself. And the question which came is how from a lake nearby, that far away was this duck. So when I passed under the tunnel-like structure by the branch and I climbed the sand dunes, I turned back and involuntarily a sudden sneeze from my side started an Arabian fox, which was actually resting on the branch, which I didn't notice. And it fell on its side and where exactly I passed. So it was, I asked myself, what if it fell on me, So despite the tumble itself, the fox dashed away into the golden dunes, unfazed by the chance encounter. But talking about biodiversity, where did it begin in the first place? Of course, Earth is around 4.5 billion years old and the third planet from the sun. And life prospers here thanks to extraordinary natural forces. The first is the distance from the sun. Light from it reaches us in just 8 minutes, providing a source of food for plants, and in doing so powering our world. and its daily, seasonal and yearly rhythms shape the life of every single creature, including ourselves. Earth is of course safeguarded from harmful solar radiation by its magnetic field and ozone layer. It is kept warm by a heat-proof atmosphere and has the right chemical components like water and carbon. And apart from that, volcanoes as well are an extraordinary force in this system, because up to 80% of the land surface is from the volcanic eruptions and volcanic activity. The weather too has been stable for thousands of years, and it is this reliability that life depended on. And all these forces are what shaped our living planet. However, this system is very fragile, and there is a new force, one so powerful it threatens all life on Earth: humans. Well, talking about this, I grew up in the 21st century. I mean, it was at a time when biodiversity loss and climate change were very obvious. And in just 17 or 18 years, I've seen the natural world disappear all around me. And I mean, nature is declining at rates unprecedented in millions of years, and very odd in the fossil record. I mean, we all remember COVID-19. It was a clear manifestation of our broken relationship with nature. And it is time we answer this nature's SOS. Because the reason COVID-19 arrived is that we keep on pushing nature at corners which they cannot escape. And as we get closer to the natural world, there are possibility of diseases jumping on us from animals. And actually, in our absence during the COVID-19 period, what happened is that many creatures actually came into our cities. In Italy, for example, dolphins returned after many years, which was really extraordinary. But the fact is that the very health and well-being of us, it indeed depends on the natural world. And it's not only about like the future of the natural world itself, it's the future of more than 8 billion people that we must look forward to. And today we stand at the crossroads of a new epoch, the Anthropocene, which is defined by our imprint on Earth's ecosystems. The Anthropocene is the age of humans. Our actions resonate across the planet, altering the climate, disrupting habitats, and testing the resilience of species. Their capacity for change is vast. Our ingenuity is boundless. The promises of rewilding, sustainable technologies, and collective action beacons us to forge a future where our story aligns with the Earth's biodiversity. But what is extraordinary in this case is we are now in Earth's 6th mass extinction. Soon after the appearance of human beings, the well-established biodiversity of Earth started perishing. The exact number of species that have gone extinct due to human activities is difficult to pinpoint. However, scientists estimate that thousands of species have gone extinct in recent centuries as a result of human activities. So when we look at the World Wildlife Fund's Living Planet Index, we can see that we have lost nearly 70% of wildlife populations since the 1970s. And the International Union of Conservation of Nature, IUCN, maintains the red list of threatened species, which assess the conservation status of various species. So as of my latest knowledge update on September 2021, over 34,000 species are considered threatened with extinction, with around 32% of amphibians, 31% of reef-building corals, and 25% of mammals facing the risk. And since 1500s, it is estimated that around 900 species have gone extinct. And this comprises, of course, 85 species of mammals, 159 birds, 35 amphibians, and 80 fish species. And since 1970s, we have lost 60% of the vertebrate species on our planet. And if you look at insects, we have lost nearly 80%. And there are more than 51 species, as you see on the screen, that we have tried to extinction, and you can see them here as we move further. I mean, if you even recall, when most of us were kids, not too long ago, we could recall that if we drove in a highway or a freeway, your windshield would be covered with insect splatter, and it just doesn't happen anymore. When you go there, it's very rare for that scenario to happen. And that is merely a straightforward way for us to comprehend the decrease in the bulk, the quantity of insects around us. But it's also the diversity. We are losing that, unfortunately. I mean, despite their abundance, insects play an important role in the ecosystem. I mean, the carcass beetles in the UAE help break down carcasses. They minimize the spread of disease, and over a long period of time, they can actually break down plastic also. So they are very important as well. So apart from being decomposers, we know that insects are pollinators. Insects are a lot of things, right? Each of us can bring one example of what and how important insects are. So talking about Charles Darwin again, Darwin, of course, had his first stop on the Beagle Cape which was Cape Verde off the coast of west coast of Africa, and where he left home at the age of 22, right? And one of the first items Darwin gathered was an octopus. The octopus's capacity to generate clouds of dark ink, fit through crevices and spray water at him and change color fascinated Darwin. And Darwin's letters are full of beautiful descriptions of this octopus and other cephalopods he saw in the area. He mentioned in one, "While looking for marine animals with my head about 2 feet above the rocky shore, I was more than once saluted by a jet of water accompanied by a slight grating noise," he wrote. "And from the difficulty which these animals have in carrying their heads, they cannot crawl with ease when placed on the ground. And I observed that one which I kept in a cabin was slightly phosphorescent in the dark." And he thought that was itself a new species. But later he came to realize that those phosphorescents were actually from dinoflagellates that were producing light or bioluminescence. So before preserving the animal in alcohol, Darwin carried it live on board the Beagle itself, and where it would of course perish soon after. And when we speak about on a small research journey myself, I witnessed the same color changing ability of a cuttlefish that feeds on crabs and is active at night. So with a torch in hand, we witnessed this cuttlefish actually change its color in order to hypnotize the crab itself. And this ability to change color has been made possible by organs present in the skin called chromatophores, as you can see, and which contain pigment sacs that become more visible at small radial muscles when they pull the sacs open, making the pigment expand under the skin. But our planet's stability itself is not just disrupted by biodiversity loss. There is of course much more. Well, this here is the planetary boundary. The concept of the planetary boundary, introduced by scientists, establishes 9 interlinked boundaries that delineate the safe thresholds within which humanity and all life on Earth can thrive. But as we can see over the years, we keep on crossing more and more of these boundaries. Scientists have of course identified 9 planetary boundaries that delineate the safeguard operating space. And regrettably, several of these boundaries have already been crossed or are teetering on the edge. And we know that during the Holocene many years back, it was these boundaries that gave us the opportunity to dominate the world as a species. And of course, one of the first things that we hear most often, especially in COP, is the boundary of climate change, recently changed to global boiling. And it is very extraordinary because the boundary that perhaps looms the largest in our collective consciousness. And as greenhouse gases continue to pour into the atmosphere, global temperatures rise, triggering an orchestra of chaos. Melting ice caps release, which of course when they release, they result in sea level rise. But the fact is, if you do an experiment at home and fill a whole glass of water with water and ice, you see that as the ice melts, the surface doesn't change at all. That's because the volume is the same. But when we look at it, when the climate changes, the molecules of water begin to expand. And that's what causes the rise in sea levels as we know it. And it of course alternates coastlines and it displaces communities. And extreme weather events crescendo as hurricanes and droughts pummel nations. I mean, when we look at it, just recently I heard from someone that Tamil Nadu is underwater, which is pretty devastating, to be honest. And since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, we have emitted 2,400 billion tons of carbon dioxide. But when we look at it, right, a change in the atmospheric carbon had been a future of all the 5 mass extinction. It is the future of the Earth. But the volcanic activity, of course, caused the climate change to take place over millions of years. And it was because they could not produce enough carbon for that sudden change. But I mean, human beings are indeed very unique because we have managed to change the climate by, of course, burning fossil fuels like coal and oil in less than 200 years, which is very devastating. And the last 6 years have indeed been the hottest years on record. I mean, one of the examples is one time I encountered a striking consequence of climate change at once thriving nature spring. Over the past 3 decades, this spring had dramatically dwindled by more than half. I mean, when I spoke to locals and I visited there, they told that the deepest part could be even above your head, maybe 4 or 5 feet. But the latest, when I visited there around 2 years back, the waters were just till my knees, the deepest areas, which is very, very bad for the creatures. And it's an active spring, right? And so when we look at it, I of course looked around for several days, and I wanted to actually come across these crabs, which I found their remaining of their claws and such. And it was around the 4th day when I came across a male and a female. And I of course captured a few pictures, published it online, and to this day, since 2 years, the species have not yet been identified, so it could be a new species perhaps. So, but when we look at it, right, if these species do actually go extinct, it can be a huge consequences. We don't know what the consequences are, but we know that, let's say, freshwater crabs, they help break down organic matter, they help break down algae, they help break down dead creatures. So it can dwindle the water source, it can show huge consequences later. And indeed, if you see a crab in an ecosystem, it is a huge factor that yes, the ecosystem is pretty healthy and doesn't contain any pollutants. Yet beyond the impacts of climate change, another silent disruptor emerges. Land use change, a profound symphony, unsettling set design. I mean, ecosystems fray, the soil erodes, and habitats vanish in this discordant transformation. The canvas of Earth's landscapes, where life story unfurl, suffers an urban sprawl, deforestation, and ecosystem alterations reshaped the narrative. And biodiversity and carbon storage falter, the very essence of our planetary performance altered. As we have been covering since the starting of this session, biodiversity loss is yet another boundary. It is like the fading notes of an orchestra, and instruments fall silent one by one, and as species vanish, ecosystems unravel. Pollinators disappear, threatening food security. Entire ecosystems collapse, and they leave gaps in this planetary composition. So we can see here a map of, again, the Living Planet report, which shows the impacts of biodiversity loss throughout the continents. And in my journey through diverse ecosystems, we are throwing many challenges to nature. One glaring reality has become abundantly clear. Plastic pollution is an insidious threat to the very fabric of nature. During a research trip, I encountered a female northern shoveler duck, a species known for its grace. However, this encounter took a tragic turn. Approaching the group, all but one bird took flight. The lone survivor, a female, exhibited signs of intoxication and tragically succumbed the next day. A post-mortem reveals a stomach filled with plastic, a testament of the pervasive impact of plastic on wildlife. Of course, I can tell that I've been fortunate enough to have nearly witnessed and come up close with nearly all of the turtle species, except the leatherback, of course, and a few others. And however, their extinction too is jeopardized by different situations: climate change, boat collisions, and notably plastic pollution. I mean, when we look at them, these creatures were even on Earth since the time, even before the time of dinosaurs itself. And as majestic as they are, turtles ingest plastic. I mean, they mistake it with prey. And I mean, most of the turtles have got a row of backward-facing barb-like structures made from keratin called papillae, and they feed on jellyfishes, some of them even very poisonous jellyfishes, and they help keep their population under control. But if you have gone to a dive, you will see underwater plastic looks very much like a jellyfish from a distance, so that's why they fall into the very traps of what we have made. And of course, when we look at it, they are of course again the balance of ecosystems. Recent research shows that not only they control jellyfish populations, they keep the seagrass belts healthy, but of course on many of the adult sea turtle shells, many creatures live that can be found nowhere else at all. But it's not just, of course, sea turtles. I also came across a huge starry puffer, a creature with remarkable defenses, and closer examinations, however, unveiled a grim reality. Its stomach filled with plastic fragments. I mean, when we look at it, it's actually pretty toxic. You know, pufferfish and porcupine fish are pretty dangerous, and they don't have much natural predators. And they've got a very powerful beak for cutting it through shells, through clams, through coral sometimes. But we can see that even the most toxic creatures are not safe from plastic. So, but why do animals eat plastic in the first place? We can see here, at least 100 species consume plastic. And shockingly, 14 million tons of plastic actually infiltrate our oceans annually, constituting of 80% of marine debris. And people think that animals are just dumb, that they're attracted to plastic, but in reality they're actually attracted by it because it mimics their prey. As you can see on the screen, dimethyl sulfide is released when krill feed on them, or feed on the algae grown on plastic, and that's what makes them get attracted to the plastic itself. And we can see that the taste varies. All the turtles target soft plastic. Some birds actually, like such as seabirds we see here, target red or such colored of plastics, which is actually pretty extraordinary when we study them. You can see young turtles prepare white plastic, right? And seabirds often opt for red plastic. I mean, similarly to us, once the plastic appears in their ecosystem, they see it as an opportunity. So they're like, okay, it's the easier target, so let me go and feed on the plastic and then go and hunt. And it gets trapped in their gut. And in turtles, for example, it produces gases which enable them to go under the water. So they basically suffocate to death. Or if it's, let's say, ghost nets, they get trapped. Dolphins, whales get trapped, and they are unable to surface, and they just drown to death, we can say. But the thing is, death is a natural part of life. I mean, I encountered a deceased Arabian gazelle once. While its death is essential for ecosystem's stability, inside its stomach, through actually a small hole created by carcass beetles, I witnessed a polyethylene plastic in this natural saga, and it's very alarming, because currently our oceans contain 5.25 trillion macro and micro bits of plastic, with 46,000 pieces per square mile and a total weight of 269,000 tons. I mean, if you take a toll at the beach itself, you can see that you might end upon sand peppered with minuscule sand-colored particles that are called toxic sponges. They are nurdles, right? And they may be tiny, but their impact is monumental. Of course, plastics are known to absorb the toxins in the environment, but different creatures actually mistake them for fish eggs, for example, so they feed on it, while their presence in the ecosystem itself causes a fluctuation in the sand's temperature, which affects sea turtles in particular, because we know that reptiles are cold-blooded creatures, and depending on the depth of their nest, the gender of the offspring is dependent by the temperature. So when we look at turtles, a temperature below 27.7 degrees Celsius produces males, while a higher temperature exceeding 31 degrees Celsius yields females. So talking about plastic, it's no more just a simple thing to be like, don't litter, you know, because it is actually affecting us as well. I mean, we humans consume, in the UAE itself, we consume around a credit card size amount of plastic every week. And recent scientific studies revealed over 80% of individuals tested bear microplastic in their bloodstreams. And when we look at it, the health implications are a mystery. We don't know what's going to happen. And in a controlled setting, however, we can see microplastics can actually have dire consequences on human cells. But it doesn't itself stop within the bloodstream itself. It has been found in breast milk, it has been found in baby's placenta, in feces. And we cannot, of course, test on human beings, but we have done tests on animals, and we have seen that it actually penetrates lungs, it hurts the brain, it hurts the heart itself, and other organs as well. I mean, it not only comes from the food we eat, but microplastic also comes from the air we breathe in polluted environments. So apart from that, it's not just about plastic, how we are losing biodiversity, it's about overfishing too. I mean, if you step into a bustling fish market now and you compare it with just over, let's say, a mere 16 years, you will see something which is starkly apparent. You know, you will see that the fish size over the years has decreased. And that is very dangerous itself. I mean, consider a female fish, for example, right? A larger fish on this plane may have more potential to produce more eggs and help the population itself. And more than 650,000 marine species are now, collaterally damaged in the active fishing pursuits. And of course, entanglement is also merciless. Sea turtles, whales, they are unable to reach the surface, and as I mentioned, they drown. The next boundary is, of course, fresh water. And it orchestrates the rhythms of ecosystems. It's basically like the veins in a human body. And it of course affects agriculture and societies. I mean, rivers serve as life veins coursing through landscapes. Yet unchecked, human demand leaves their veins parched. The next boundary, as we see before this, is of course the freshwater index, again from the Living Planet report, which shows the decline in freshwater populations and others as well. So apart from that, the next boundary which we have crossed is the flow of nitrogen and phosphorus, which is of course a huge conductor in our planetary orchestra, and it maintains a delicate tempo. However, pollutants infiltrate waterways, poisoning aquatic life and imperiling human communities. I mean, algae overgrowth suffocates once clear waters. And apart from that, we have also got ocean acidification, which transforms oceans into a somber melody. I mean, as carbon dioxide seeps into the waters, the acidity increases. And this is actually sinister because creatures which use calcium carbonate for their shells, those shells begin to dissolve over time, right? So the boundaries that we spoke about, these are the sheets, the sheet music of Earth's performance. And they are now at risk of discordance. I mean, human activities have pushed them precisely close to tipping points, threatening irreversible consequences which indeed we don't know of yet. Of course, in our intertwined existence with nature, the fate of tiny Demodic's face mites might hold unforeseen consequences for us. Of course, these mites are found throughout the faces of us. They actually help clean the pores, and they are transferred from one person to another through, let's say, from a baby to its mother by facial touch. And they were once external symbiotants and now teeter on the brink of extinction due to inbreeding and gene loss. So I think no creature on earth, including us, is safe. But to me, what I believe is biodiversity loss and climate change are like twin problems. Each influence the other. I mean, as biodiversity dwindles, our allies in the fight against climate change vanish too. I mean, global temperatures have surged approximately 1.2 to 1.3 degrees Celsius. And just yesterday itself, it was announced that the Paris Agreement, which was 1.5, is going to be crossed by 2024. I mean, when we look at this, our planet has been during the Holocene in a very stable period of time. The fluctuations were just between -1 and +1 degree Celsius since of course, the beginning of human appearance. But we can see that since the 1970s or 90s itself, we see that the fluctuations becomes greater, right? And of course, where do we get these records from? It's from 3 rings, which are of course our modern thermometer that paints a sobering picture of our warming world. But what is extraordinary is here in the UAE, you might have actually thought, okay, this person is standing here, he's talking about impacts, he's talking about losses, he's talking about there is no hope. But in reality, there is hope, and we have already actually had these hopeful and successful conservation stories. And one example is in UAE itself. I mean, when we look at it, right, I myself am a witness to this, the successful conservation of a species by myself. And this is, of course, as you can see, that is the baby Arabian oryx. It is the UAE's national animal. And in the 1940s, the Arabian oryx faced near extinction due to hunting and habitat degradation. And it was classified as extinct in the wild. Their story seemed over. However, something which is extraordinary is that the visionary leader, His Highness Sheikh Zayed bin Sultan Al Nahyan, sparkled hope. He recognized their vital role as ecosystem engineers, and Sheikh Zayed launched the Arabian Oryx breeding program in the 1960s. And Sheikh Zayed's legacy extended globally as he fostered international collaborations for conservation. And today the Arabian Oryx roams the Arabian Peninsula once again, a living testament to the visionary leadership and international cooperation. I mean, in 2010, as I recall, the UAE achieved another great milestone. We now have according to the latest statistics back in 2020, we have got the largest populations of Arabian oryx in the world, which is around 6,900 individuals. And this success itself showcases how humans can come together, how we can be united. And the UAE itself is a huge example, because UAE is a united Arab Emirates. It is Muttahid indeed. But in the quest to heal our planet, the vision of hope lies within the transformative concept of rewild. And back when I spoke in TEDx around 2 years back, I broke down rewild into different letters. Of course, the first that we see is R. R stands for regenerate, rediscover, reconnect, and rejuvenate. Reconnecting and rediscovering our bond with nature, and of course regenerating, which is healing the earth's heartbeat. I mean, imagine a landscape transformed through reforestation and sustainable land management, breathing life into degraded lands. I mean, by planting trees and embracing regenerative agricultural practices, we can renew ecosystems, sequester carbon, and foster environments that flourish once again. The use of biochar derived from the resilient ghaaf tree in the UAE itself emerges as a cost-effective and efficient method to capture and store carbon, aiding in our battle against climate change. Of course, speaking about rejuvenation, we must begin to rejuvenate our oceans, the Earth's greatest habitats. And to repair this, we can actually start what we do in the UAE as the Priceless Planet Coalition. I mean, a few months back, I planted mangrove trees in Khor Al Kalba, UAE. And it contributed to the global initiatives to restore 100 million trees by 2025. And we know that mangroves are extraordinary plants. They are resilient to saline conditions, and they provide sanctuaries for juvenile fish and other creatures. But they face threats due to deforestation. And it's not as simple, because see, once the mangroves disappear, replanting them will not be easy at all. And we witness that the decline of mangroves, once we see it, we recognize the urgent need to regenerate these vital ecosystems, because they are one of our greatest allies in capturing carbon by itself. The next letter is, of course, E, which stands for evolve and empower. Of course, the key element essential for our harmonies, coexistence with nature it is. And as our understanding evolves, so must our actions. Adopting sustainable practices and nurturing urban wildlife sanctuaries are pivotal steps towards embracing this evolution. Evolution is basically, as we begin to regenerate our wild spaces, we must change our cities, make sustainable architecture, and so welcome wildlife to our cities indeed. I mean, take for instance the Ras Al Khor Wildlife Sanctuary, which is nestled amidst the bustling city of Dubai. Here, amidst the city, tens of thousands of birds thrive. And park rangers, as you can see here, with meticulous care, provide nourishment to these elegant creatures, a testament to the cohabitation of wildlife and urban spaces. So, one more thing that I witnessed actually in Iran is the encounter of an Indian mongoose family. I mean, they were very much within a factory, and they were relying on factory workers for sustenance. Initially just a pair, they now thrive within a small cabin, as you see it came here. And this revealed that the mangoes' adaptation to human presence, as they cautiously enjoyed their meals before retreating at their silent hints of disturbance, is a testament that we can live with the natural world. But we also discuss about E being empowerment. And of course that includes the narrative where local communities and indigenous people become guardians of their land. The ancestral wisdom, where of course cultivating true generations, holds the key to restoring ecosystems and preserving the culture and the natural environmental cultural heritage. I mean, collaborations with these stewards of nature becomes essential for the success of rewilding initiatives. In the UAE itself, we have got an initiative under the environmental agency Abu Dhabi called the Green Youth Majlis. Here has more than 500 youths, all active in many fields of sustainability and environment, led by 10 passionate leaders. W is the next word in our list, and it includes as welcoming wildlife and wildlife preservation, which is intertwined as a testament to our connection with nature. Picture a world of, let's say, wildlife corridors crisscross urban landscapes, preserving the habitats of countless species. These corridors, carefully planned and protected, echo the vital link between our ecosystem's health and creatures that call them home. The next letter is, of course, I, innovation and inclusion. Innovation, of course, means using whatever innovation that we currently have. Drones for planting in rainforests. Solar panels, of course, for renewable energy. And one of the biggest innovations we can take and we can develop is from nature itself. This here is an upside down jellyfish, and here is where we can draw inspiration. These jellyfishes lie upside down on the sand. Within their tentacles lie symbiotic algae that capture the sun's energy, and they make up to 90% of its diet through photosynthesis. The next letter is, of course, L, which comes for learn and love. The same way I'm doing so today, awareness is one of the key aspects in saving the environment. Because we can imagine a reality where people across all ages are intimately connected with nature, and where ecological wisdom is seamlessly integrated into the very fabric of our societies. But there's something here that we have lost: the love for our planet. If we start loving the natural world, we can understand what's going on. And when we understand, we can be like, okay, this is the problem, and this is why I must care. And when you care is when you can save it. And D itself includes this continuation and dedication. This continuation, of course, means stopping every single unsustainable practices. Fishing, for example, as we mentioned, overfishing is a huge contributor of loss of oceans nutrition. I mean, there are actually 17,000 marine protected areas in the world, but that only makes up less than 7% of the oceans. But again, we can also shift to looking at what nature offers us, and that's by changing our diet. When we look at it, of course, this lesson is echoed throughout nature. I mean, like Arabian gazelles, our diet becomes pivotal. Their story reveals inefficiency in energy transfer from plants to herbivores and onwards up the food chain. This inefficiency explains why creatures up the food chain, like the Arabian leopard, cannot dominate vast territories, adhering to nature's law. And I mean, we know that a huge amount of carbon dioxide is by itself released from different sources of agriculture. Let's say from cows, for example, a huge amount of methane is released. So we can all make our own rewild acronyms, because it's a vast, it can be a beacon of hope, a guiding light towards a future where our world flourishes in full splendor. But the factor is, can you imagine a sustainable future? And what might it look like? I mean, to me, it looks like a future where each of us is connected with the natural world. I mean, just imagine. Once upon a time, our future transformed magically. Cities bloomed with green architecture, and clean electric transport humbled silently through streets once choked with pollution. Biodiversity thrived in lush forests and rivers, and now they run crystal clear. Agriculture embraced sustainability, feeding the world while nurturing the land. Again, we come back to our diet. Because when we see, if we shift towards a plant-based diet, then the sun's energy directly goes into growing our food. We then could still produce enough food, but using quarter of the land. This could free up an area the size of United States, China, and European Union and Australia combined. And this space could be given back to nature. Of course, again, this sustainable future wasn't just about the environment. It paved way for equality and education, powered by renewable energy that banished energy poverty. Health and well-being blossomed with abundant green spaces and a deep connection to nature. What about technology? It was harnessed for sustainability, minimizing waste and optimizing resources. Nations united, settling differences aside to combat global challenges collectively. And now imagine yourself as a protagonist, a writer of your own verse in this symphony of a sustainable future. Your choices, your actions, they paint the canvas of a thriving world in collaboration with its inhabitants. Our journey, of course, here reaches an end. Thank you all for listening to me. Your verse could be a pledge to reduce your carbon footprint, to embrace minimalizing and cherish experiences over material possessions. It could be a commitment to support ethical businesses, to advocate for policies that prioritize the well-being of people and planet alike. Your verse might even be the spark that ignites a movement, a ripple that grows into a wave of positive change. And biodiversity, of course, transcends borders, languages, and cultures. It is the thread that connects us all, reminding us that our destinies are intertwined. The story of biodiversity implores us to be wise stewards of our planet, nurturing the lessons of nature For within its pages lies the blueprint for verse in the epic poem of our shared existence. Thank you. Thank you.
Very inspiring ministries there also.
So with this, in case you have got any questions, we have got 5 minutes for a short Q&A session too. If you have got any questions, yes.
Do you not think that consumerism is causing this problem? We're obsessed with buying and we really are over-consuming now.
It is very much so, yeah.
And so, despite what's going on, which is great, it's really looking at the symptoms.
Yeah.
Technology is trying to solve the symptoms, not the cause. Because we are
consuming a lot. I mean, a huge amount of food itself is wasted. And it is believed that if the food itself, that wasted food is saved, we can cut on half of our land which we use for agriculture purposes. So yeah, we do waste a lot. We do consume a lot.
What do you think? And governments, though, generally, I feel, never want to look at it that way. They do what's happening now. Dealing with the symptoms, how can technology save us?
I mean, one of the issues that I've faced over the years is the factor that, I'm still a high school student, I've not been still in the real world yet. But the fact is that when we look at it, we are in a world where, despite COP and all these things happening, we are not covering every point that we must. I mean, when we look at this, there's this triangle, right? The government are posting, where people, individuals such as me, are pointing at governments. Governments are saying, no, it's not my fault. They're pointing at businesses, it's business' fault, and they're posting at people, So it's a whole cycle where we're just blaming one another. So one way with which we can, let's say, cover all those symptoms and how we can actually find solutions with technology is where each one of us finds our roles. Okay, as a person, I have the opportunity that if I'm not in a hurry, use public transport, for example, right? Or you convert to electric vehicles. And again, governments play an important role when it comes to, let's say, when I want to, involve renewable energies, I must reduce the cost. Because even when we go to the markets, right, we see even reusable cups are more expensive than the plastic ones. So people always prefer what is cheaper. So that's one of the impacts. And I mean, unsustainable products, unsustainable practices are usually done in mass. Let's say mass overfishing, so just simple whatever comes by, and they sell it at a cheap price because they're not doing any effort to it. If they, let's say, have this system where they capture the fish based on size and they release the ones which they don't want, then it's going to cost more, of course, because they're putting much effort, but it can give back to our planet as we know it. I mean, because every single creature is connected. We don't know the connections yet. I mean, it was just 50 years back when the whales were going extinct, the blue whales and all the whales. Then we came to realize if they're gone, the oceans will absolutely run off of nutrition because the whales, they are part of the nutritious cycle. They take from the surface and release the nutrients in the depth and vice versa again. Does that answer the question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. So any other questions? Yep.
We are from Brazil and we are dealing with a lot of problems because of declining biodiversity. And we'd like to know if you have any knowledge regarding the financial instruments or green bonds that could benefit the research and the compensation for the people who are really struggling to keep this biodiversity. And how do you see these green bonds connecting with what you do in field? I have not much information about you because I just saw your page when I came here, and I really felt that you are very poetic and dedicated.
Thank you.
Person on what you're doing, and I got very inspired by that. And in Brazil, we are looking for ways to go away from just considering carbon as just one ecosystem service.
Yeah.
And we are looking at a more holistic approach for biodiversity. And biodiversity is what really makes us different than Venus, for example.
From around the world, I mean, Amazon is a key contributor to oxygen as well. Yeah.
And I'm a lawyer, and I do work with the green bonds. This is my field of study.
Yep.
And I would like to know if you have a certain knowledge or what you see about this transition, that the economy that can support this biodiversity protection and the rewilding or recovering this biodiversity.
Yeah, I mean the thing is that talking about the Brazil itself, the Amazon itself, we know that it's going to be the first ecosystem that is going to be affected in a very bad rate. That means it's going to be terrible because previously we thought, okay, we can continue to cut down Amazon, right? And it was just last year when they released that if we continue, by the next 10 years, Amazon could be a savanna by itself.
This year was the worst drought ever in the Black River.
Yeah, and I mean, the rainforests have got huge amount of contributions to human populations. Medicine comes from there, oxygen comes from there. And one of the things that even we are facing difficulty in UAE is the lack of fund from elsewhere, research-based countries, to come and research in the ecosystem, to find different situations, find different solutions, and in doing so, support local businesses. I mean, in India, for example, there's now a local business where it's just dedicated to feeding and protecting Asiatic lions. And I mean, Asiatic lions were found throughout Asia before, but now it's only conserved in the parts of India called Gujarat. So, I mean, one of the biggest impacts that we can have is as individuals. One is, of course, spread awareness. That's the least we can do. And second thing is, businesses must have this system where at the end, whatever profit I get, this much percentage goes to those people in the environment that are, supporting the forest or supporting the ecosystem, because that will motivate more people to come and go into the work of planting, go into the work of research, and go into the work of, the factor of preserving the natural spaces. I mean, and the key contributor to Amazon itself is agriculture. I mean, so if all of us cut our diet, then Amazon itself, I think, will recover. I mean, because I think it was around 3 or 4 football-sized fields that are being cut down in Amazon itself for making way for cattle and all these things. So there are many solutions. So the rewild, as I showed, is one of my own way of saying how we can protect it. But I think the factor is the money must go where it deserves. I mean, when we look at the conditions, COP itself, right, is a huge contributor to carbon dioxide emissions. I mean, it's a very fancy place. I agree, it's a very beautiful place for spreading awareness. But then again, it's a huge contributor, and they don't cover biodiversity. Not at all. I mean, I went to the Blue Zone a few times. They don't cover anything on biodiversity at all.
But they're starting.
They're starting, yeah. There's a small starter, yes. But they must work faster, right? Because we have already lost 70% of biodiversity, and since 1970s, and we are seeing the consequences. We saw COVID-19. We are seeing other diseases coming up, and we are seeing that many people are dying due to pollution. Pollution is one of the key factors of human health consequences, right? So yeah, when we focus on places which have got beautiful ecosystems, Costa Rica, Australia, Brazil itself, I think we must focus on building mainly locally produced foods, not buying from elsewhere. And the main thing which we must do is, as the government or as individuals, we must provide opportunities for people to come in and say, okay, I want to start a business where I plant trees, or where I research on this and this animal, or I somehow give to the indigenous people, right? Because there are many indigenous people that live within Amazon itself. So I believe the funding must be given to those countries. Yeah. So one last question? Yeah.
On that issue, that's not happening, funding. Every talk I've been to, that's been a central point that's been brought up. It's the idea that the government is really collaborating and whatever. And then, the result is we were able to individual to do this or whatever. But you're never going to get a lot of people to do that. So how do we convince the government to sort of, instead of looking at it as a cost, to look at it as an investment in the future?
We got to showcase it. Right? The same way, again, it was a very limited session, right? But if you go and take the person to an environment, I mean, the thing is, if you go and take them to a beach, for example, they're going to see the direct impacts of plastic pollution. You will literally see the animals choking due to plastic or being hit by a boat, right? And they can then relate, right? Because if we cut down on plastic, we can capture whatever plastic has already been released and reuse it. right? And there are much more better ways. I mean, like recent, if you go to the Museum of Future, you will see that people are using seaweed and they're making these edible plastic. So, I mean, to show people what they must do is you have to take part in different initiatives by World Wildlife Fund, your local organization, to get up close to nature and see, okay, this is how plastic is being affecting the ecosystem, you know. And then the government themselves must have these campaigns to say, okay, this turtle is not living in your home, I know, it's not even near to you, but it affects your livelihood in this and this way. Because human beings are very selfish beings. But once we get to know that we are affected directly, we're going to be like, okay, my future depends on it, I must take action.
But you know, like the science is there, the data is there, those things are known, they're not unknown. However, the step for them, okay, they look at it, they understand, but then when it comes to the economics of it, there's no implementation. So that's my question. I mean, every single talk, it's been the same issue. They can't get out of their head to sort of see it as like more important than overcoming the cost. And I can't seem to find the answer to how, like we can present the data, we can present this, but it just seems like they don't care.
Yeah, the science is clear, but they don't care.
Scientists care, but
I mean,
when it comes to economic implementation, there are so many limitations. How do we convince them? Scientists are protesting, everyone's doing the most.
See, it's not about protesting. What I believe personally is you saw my picture of showing kids my specimens. But see, the thing is,
it's small changes. And
small changes, yeah. Because when we see a single plant cannot change the world and produce enough oxygen, but when they live together, they can change the entire world, right? So that's what.
It's small changes, but now we're seeing flooding in Pakistan, we're seeing issues everywhere, we're seeing wildfires in Australia, as you guys have mentioned, issues in Brazil. These things need immediate change.
But then that's what, again, everyone is blaming, as I mentioned to Mohammed Self here, we are blaming everyone. No one is being, okay, I'm blamed for this. You know, like especially businesses, they contribute a lot to different situations. Even individuals are dedicating those motivations. So, you know, we have to be like, okay, my position is here, I must do this, or else I cannot. We have to find our position. That's the thing which people lack, you know. We talk about it, we don't know our position. That's the main thing that we are lacking. If we find our position there itself, we'll be like, okay, this is where we are lacking and this is where we have to work on it. It's blamed on developed countries because they're not willing to change. They have been built up over many years, so they have to just break down their entire cycle and go to what they were like hundreds of years ago. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Which one?
I said I agree with you.
Thank you so much. Yeah.